So for my own personal system build, I opted to go with, yes, the Lian Li O11 Dynamic XL. I know it's been overdone, but you know, I've been looking at this case since it was released, and there's a reason why it says Der Bauer on the case, and it's a reason why it's ROG certified. When it comes to picking out a case for a custom water-cooled system, you'd be hard-pressed to find a lot of cases that are as custom designed specifically for that task than the Lian Li O11 Dynamic XL. I tried to find other cases. I looked all over. I looked at Corsair, Thermaltake, Cooler Master, Fractal Design, you name it. And my heart still kind of gravitated towards this case. So this is the case that's going to house my custom acrylic water loop for my 3090 RTX and my 5950X CPU. So I'm sure you've seen this case before, but I wanted to kind of video blog everything that I'm doing for this build. Because you know, the more computers that I build, the more I get to have fun kind of putting them together and seeing the look on people's face when they get a new system. But nothing quite beats putting together your own system and seeing the look on your own face when you power it up for the first time. So I personally prefer the Lian Li O11 Dynamic XL for this particular build. But you know, the next build that I do after this will have to go with something different. So let's get this thing open. The box is pretty heavy. The case is pretty heavy too. Ugh. I like to invert the entire box and then just slide the box out. So we'll do that. And the other thing is always pop out your little handles. If you don't do that, the box is not going to lift off. Alrighty then. So there we have it. The Lian Li O11 Dynamic XL. Now, lots of other tech YouTubers have already gone through features. I'll just kind of highlight for you why I chose this system versus something else. Okay, here we go. There we go. Get these out of the way. All right, let's stand this thing up. It is pretty heavy, and I mean, that's kind of one of the downsides to going with any case with tempered glass, is they are a little bit heavier than, say, an all aluminum or even an all steel sheet case. Just want to be really careful with it. You know, sometimes people say, treat things as if you own it. But I find a lot of people abuse the things that they own. So in my case, it's treat it as if it's a customer's that you will value getting repeat business for. So why the Lian Li O11 Dynamic XL? Well, look how much room there is inside this case. I mean, you've got room for a nice thick radiator at the top. You've got kind of with your mounting brackets. And I mean, this case, aside from being extremely easy to work in, it's also extremely easy to take apart. So we'll open it up so that we have a little better lighting on the inside. And these tempered glass panels, they just kind of slide up and out. So really, really easy to work with. So you can see that the top here, your motherboard's going to stop about here. So you've got room for 30mm radiator plus fans very easily at the top with lots of clearance. You've also got room for up to a 60mm radiator at the bottom. I'm going to do a 45 with push-pull configuration, so it's going to probably come to about kind of about that thick. So it's going to overlap the motherboard just a little bit, but there's enough space between where the motherboard is and where the radiator is going to be mounted that there's ample room in between to fit 2 fans sandwiching a radiator. And this case is also good because all of the fan intakes and outlets come with dust filters. So very easy to clean if you ever need to. I may remove the dust filter out of the top just because I'm looking to use that as my exhaust and maximize my airflow, so there won't be any air being sucked in through the top anyway. The other thing I love about this case is that not only is there tons of ample room to work with, you could put a radiator in the side, the bottom, the top. So the other thing I love about this case is how much room there is in the back. It's extremely accessible for putting in a larger power supply. So on the back, you can actually see that there's a removable cover here, so it'll cover some of your wiring, make things look a little bit nicer. But there's more than enough room for an extended larger power supply in here, as well as any of the cabling that you'd like to do. They really put a lot of thought into this case, and it just shows, because every single little thing that you can do with it, like the bottom plate pops out, so you can mount your fans and radiators to it and then pop it back in. It's just the little things that they thought about when they designed this case, for me, really makes this my #1 pick for this build. The only complaint that I have about this case is that it comes with 2 USB 3 connectors. Most motherboards don't come with 2, they only come with 1. So I'll be using a USB 3 to USB 2 adapter so that I can get full usage of the front panel USB. The other nice thing is that this back plate here is made up of a couple different panels, and you can actually remove this to install multiple fans or another radiator. There's a liquid cooling distribution block that's really cool that comes for this case, but I'm doing a different setup, so I won't need a distribution block. And depending on what you're doing with it, this case provides ample room for any kind of water cooling setup, E-ATX motherboards, essentially anything you want to throw at it. For my build, I'm not going to be putting in any standard size hard drives right out of the gate, but the nice thing is the back side comes with a couple of really easily accessible 3.5-inch drive ports. So you can actually remove the 3.5-inch drive cages if you're not going to be using them, or you can, just simply remove these screws, pop that out, and slide in your 3.5-inch drives, and just connect them all up in the back. So, I don't think there's a lot this case doesn't have. The only thing, of course, depending on how old school you are, the only thing you're not going to be able to do is install a CD drive. The fact that the Crosshair 8 Dark Hero motherboard even comes with a driver CD kind of blows my mind, because I haven't had a CD drive in my system for over 6 years already, and I have no intention of ever putting a CD drive in another system, just because it's so cheap now. You can go out and buy a USB CD drive and just plug it in when you need it, the odd time that you do. It's actually kind of funny, because I still have my PlayStation 3, and I literally only use it to watch DVDs and Blu-rays, because my computer systems don't have DVD or Blu-ray drives anymore. So I'll have to see how this white build turns out. I want to do white radiators, white fans. The Dark Hero motherboard is going to be the darkest thing in the case. I'm not quite sure what I want to do with fluid yet. My plan initially is to just go with clear fluid until everything's been amply used and leak tested. But I don't know. Maybe I'll do a white fluid or maybe a colored fluid. So now that I've got the case taken out of the box and kind of torn apart, the next step for me is going to be to install the power supply, mount the motherboard, and do an initial setup and boot test with the 3090 RTX, the 5950X, and just make sure that the motherboard, the graphics card, and all the drives are fully functional before I start tearing them apart and preparing them for the water cooling blocks. All right, so the next step is I've got to bring this over to my workbench, get the power supply in, motherboard mounted, and do a test boot and see if everything is functioning the way it should before I start prepping all the components for water cooling. Because I'm spanning this over several videos over several weeks, I'm not really sure how much time is going to pass in between posting videos, but I'm looking forward to seeing the progress, and I hope you come along for the ride. Thanks for watching.